strategically, guys, or tactically, probably more appropriate word. The Germans still had air superiority over Russia, and so what Stalingrad looked like was really an attempt to what's called hugging the enemy. You saw the rubble in the streets, right? That made it difficult for German armor to move through there. So the Russians purposefully, left the rubble and let the Germans come into the city, and so that the Germans couldn't use their air power, their artillery, because German soldiers were mixed in with Russian soldiers, so they couldn't use that. So it eliminated that advantage, and then it becomes basically soldier versus soldier, street to street, house to house, room to room type of fighting, which will last months. And eventually, the Russians will prevail. In the movie, they really, they target those officers, like the German officers. So it's demoralizing to the Germans. And I think I might have mentioned this the other day. The Germans are using a lot of Romanian soldiers and like soldiers from Belarus that really don't have a dog in this fight like the Germans do. You know what I mean? So they're not as willing to sacrifice as maybe some of your hardened German, your German fighters. So this would be the downfall of Nazi Germany in the East. Okay. All right, we good there? There, okay. All right. So I showed you this map yesterday. And so obviously Stalingrad is out here further. Eventually, guys, the Russians will begin to push the Germans back towards Europe, okay, as we get involved over there and down there in North Africa. So continuing here, guys, yesterday we spent some time talking about supply lines, getting those supplies to Britain. And obviously the German U-boats are going to be wreaking havoc. The United States is actually going to start helping with the convoys, using our Navy in September of 41. So that September 1st, so 3 days later, one of our ships gets attacked. Okay, and Americans are going to start dying. In October, 2 more American vessels are attacked, many killed. And so basically Roosevelt tells our Navy, our merchant marines, fire on sight. Okay, so you see Germans on the high seas, take them out. Okay, and so basically we have an undeclared war taking place in the Atlantic. Yet we are still not officially at war. That makes sense. So these are some good pictures of like merchant marines. These are like cargo ships. These guns. Okay. Anybody go home and look up Somali pirates and cargo ships last night? Watch some videos on that. Okay. It's pretty crazy, man. That's a pretty good view of like a World War II destroyer. They get better than this as the war goes on. That's probably a pretty early one. The battleships are what are pretty cool in World War II. Yeah. You guys ever see that movie Battleship?
Yeah. Fighting the aliens.
Yeah. When they drift the USS Missouri.
The Missouri, man.
It's such a cool scene.
Yeah.
They drop the anchor and like drifts the
Yeah. Using the old guys from World War II.
They're like shooting the machine guns.
Yeah. Great plot. Aliens. Did you guys ever watch, there was a series called Lost Ship? I was always intrigued by that. I want to watch it, but I don't have the right streaming service for that. But I mean, it went on for like 7 seasons. It was pretty good. There's an old movie, well, from the early '80s called. It's this cool movie. Like it takes a modern, like a U.S. aircraft carrier that was in probably like the 1980s, and somehow it goes through like the Bermuda Triangle or something, and it goes back in time. Like, so you take a 1980s aircraft carrier and it goes back in time to World War II. It's really a cool plot. Man, I'm trying to remember the name of that movie. I'll find it. It was one of my favorite movies for a long time. I mean, it's a really interesting plot. I mean, it's crazy, but it's good stuff. I'll find it. Okay. All right. So, okay, guys. Now, kind of the lead into Pearl Harbor. All right. You guys obviously watched part of the movie. What the Japanese are building, what do you call it? Well, you call it the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. Okay? It's a mouthful. All right? Now remember, the French, the Dutch have been defeated in Europe. And the French and the Dutch and the British and the Americans all have colonies in Southeast Asia, all of which are vulnerable to the Japanese. Okay? So this map is basically a map right before Pearl Harbor. Okay, so I'll show you a before and after here in a minute. Okay, but you can see the proximity of the Philippines, the Dutch East Indies, which today we call Indonesia. Okay, French Indochina, which of course is Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, and then you have Thailand, and then this is Burma. Okay, guys, Burma is important to this story. Today we call Burma Myanmar, one of the worst places on the planet to live. Okay, but it's mostly jungle. And then you have a mountain range that runs through here. Welcome to the Himalayas.
Oh, what is that? Monsters Inc.
Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Yeti, right?
Yeah.
All right, so the Japanese are looking at these French and Dutch, and then the British colonies as well. Now, guys, this is Malaya. This right here, okay? At the very tip of Malaya is Singapore. Okay, today we call that Malaysia. Okay, but at the time it's called Malaya. All right, now, to prepare for the invasion of these different places, the Japanese want to close off any support that we have for the Chinese. All right, guys. Any guys ever been up Pikes Peak? Yeah, if you've driven through the mountains, you guys know what a switchback is, right? To go up. Now, the Himalayas are like the Rockies on steroids, right? Like Mount Everest is in the Himalayas. Okay. This is an engineering marvel, okay? So the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers builds a road through the jungles of Burma and then across the Himalayas, okay, which is a feat. And we are supplying the Chinese. Now, guys, this is a part of World War II that is often overlooked, okay? But we're not going to overlook it, okay? If you go to a textbook and look up, Burma Road, you might get 1 or 2 sentences on it in a textbook. We're going to give it a little more love. All right, guys, I had an interview, one of my students, a few years ago, of an American soldier that served in Burma alongside Chinese soldiers fighting against the Japanese. Americans fighting with the Chinese against the Japanese. Now, there's not a lot of stuff on it. I mean, our history focuses on D-Day, the atom bomb, Stalingrad, the Battle of the Bulge, like these big stories. We don't get a lot on this, okay? Now, so the Japanese want to close that off. Then the Japanese will attack French Indochina and Thailand. Okay, the U.S. responds with an all-out embargo of trade with Japan, which means no more what? No more oil for Japan. Okay, this is the proverbial, the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? Or the last straw, if you will. It is at this point, when we stop trading oil with Japan, that they have about a 6-month reserve of oil that they decide to try and take our Navy out and set us back a year, 2 years, so that they can do whatever they want in Southeast Asia and create their greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. Okay. Now, let me show you before and after here, 1941. Then Pearl Harbor, which obviously, guys, it's more than just Pearl Harbor. Okay, so this is after. Okay, what you'll notice is this, Burma, Malaya, much of the Dutch East Indies, half of New Guinea, and then all of these island chains the Japanese will take. Okay, we had American troops on Wake Island. They will be defeated. Okay, down here in the Solomons, these are very important because Australia, guys, is our England in the Pacific. Okay, they grow food there. They have materials there. We need Australia. So when we get to the next chapter, one of the first things we'll be talking about is the Solomon Islands, in particular, Guadalcanal. So you guys, on any of these island chains, the Japanese will build airfields. So they can put land-based bombers on these islands. And if we bring our Navy into here, our Navy is at risk of being destroyed by land-based bombers of the Japanese Empire. You follow me? So guys, when we come back from this, it's going to be a long road back. It's not going to be easy. We will see major battles on a lot of these different island chains, okay? And as we move back, obviously, guys, we're going to have to retake the Philippines. And then the most famous battles would include the battle for Iwo Jima and Okinawa, okay, here. Okay, so that'll be like at the end of the next chapter because it won't be till 1945. Okay, but this is where the Japanese really expand their empire, the greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. Okay, so you got your after, okay, and your before. All right, now this supply line, the Burma Road ran through here, but once the Japanese took Burma, we're going to start flying in supplies into China, okay? And we'll be using this aircraft mostly, which is the C-47, okay? This is what my father flew. This plane was used for multiple decades by the United States Army, okay? It was used in World War II, Korea, Vietnam. In fact, this was one of the first planes that was used by American Airlines as a transport for passengers, okay? They would convert these into, small airliners, okay? Make the DC-9 was one of the first after that, and then pretty soon you had jets, and you had your 727, okay? Which is what my dad flew for American Airlines, okay? Now we have the jumbo jets, okay? Like, any of you guys been on a 767 or 777, 787? These things are enormous. Like some of them have 2 stories. Jumbo jets, okay? The 777 is just like super long, okay? And like when we flew to China, like, so the middle of the plane is wider. So you've got 3 rows, like you got 7 seats, 10 seats, 7 seats. Yeah, okay. And then as you go to the back, you still got 3 rows, you're back to like 4 seats, 6 seats, 4 seats in the back. Okay. So it kind of like, these things are huge, okay? Yeah. But they kind of fly themselves. You know what I mean? They're all computerized. So much. All right. Yeah. Now, all right. So, guys, I want to read this to you. We had to fly in the supplies, okay, over the Himalayas. All right. So this is called flying the hump. After Burma fell to the Japanese in May of 42, Allied supply link to China was tenuous. American supplies were shipped across the Atlantic, around Africa to India, carried by train to air bases in northeastern India, and then flown in a constant shuttle over the treacherous Himalayan hump to Kunming, which is here, okay, keeping the vital lifeline open. The route became ominously known as the Aluminum Trail. Littered with wrecked aircraft lost to violent and unpredictable weather, mechanical failures, or enemy fighters. Now, guys, this is still there. We flew thousands of these planes across the Himalayan hump, but a lot of them didn't make it. Hundreds of them never made it. And the crews that were on these planes never made it. Now, some of you guys I know Coach Gann, okay? And you guys know who Coach Gann is? He's one of our football coaches. He's got a beard. He was in the Marines for like 30 years, okay? And one of his last jobs with the Marines was to try and find these missing Americans. They're known to be missing in action, presumed dead, okay? This was over 70 years ago. We're still looking for the remains of Americans in the Himalayas. Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, Coach Gann went there to the Himalayas. Okay, as we move into the European theater later on, guys, all these thousands and thousands of bombers. Okay, we still have tens of thousands of Americans missing in action from World War II. We still have a lot from Korea, from Vietnam. And as you guys know with Father Capon, right? They just recently found his remains in Korea, right? They brought him back. This was about a year ago, okay? So our Army, our Pentagon hasn't forgotten these people. We're still trying to bring them home. Now, obviously, it'll be their skeletal remains. But this is a part of history that kind of gets overlooked. And so I kind of wanted to share that with you. The fact that Americans did sacrifice on the behalf of the Chinese greatly during this war. Okay, so things like Lend-Lease, when we talked about helping Britain, we're also helping the Russians, we're also helping the Chinese. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to the leader of China now. Okay, and his name is Chiang Kai-shek. Okay, everybody say that with me. Chiang Kai-shek. All right. We're going to be talking about Chiang Kai-shek for a long time. That's him on the left. Japan demands that we cut off aid to Chiang Kai-shek. We demand that they pull out of China. Sound like fighting words to you? Yeah. Neither one is going to do either. Now, Chiang Kai-shek is the dictator, military dictator of China. Is he a good guy? Sure. Most dictators are not good guys, okay? Is he our guy? Yes. Is Stalin a good guy? Is he our guy? Yeah. Okay, that's where we're at here. Now, Chiang Kai-shek will survive the war. Okay, and he will also survive the communist revolution in 1948 and 49. Okay, of which he is not a communist. So he will flee to the island of Taiwan and create a whole new history for that island. So he's an important figure. This is Hideki Tojo. Tojo, nicknamed the Razor, will ascend to the head of the Japanese army in mid-October of 1941. And it will be Tojo that is the person most responsible for convincing the emperor to agree to attack the United States. Okay. Tojo is one of 6 Japanese generals that will be executed at the end of the war for war crimes. Okay. And speaking of interviews, had a student whose grandfather, great-grandfather, was the prison guard for Tojo for about 6 months before he was executed, and really got to know the man. Can you top that?
No.
Some of you might. Okay. So, guys, do we know the Japanese are going to attack us? Miss Pedruzzi went through this with you, the conspiracy theory? Did she talk to you guys about that? Oh, she did? She did with the other classes. Like, she stopped the movie for 15 minutes and told the students about this conspiracy theory, which is the mother of all conspiracy theory. That Roosevelt knew the attack on Pearl Harbor was coming, allowed it to happen, because he knew we needed something big enough to convince the American people to go to war. Now, we were warned by the British intelligence, MI6, if you will. Okay, they weren't that at the time, I don't think. We don't have the CIA yet. We have the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS. Okay. Now, the British warned us that Pearl Harbor was a likely target. Okay. Probably the biggest conspiracy theory. The thing that they have going for them most, I don't buy it, by the way. Okay, I don't buy this conspiracy theory. Is that for the first time in the last 6 months at Pearl Harbor, all of our aircraft carriers were out to sea at the same time. Knowing that we would need those aircraft carriers to win, Roosevelt moved them so they would not be hit in this attack by Japan. Okay. Now, guys, we were on high alert. We knew that Pearl Harbor could be a target. We also knew Malaysia, Philippines, and all these other places were likely targets. Okay, so at Pearl, we thought that the Japanese would try and use sabotage, like they would sneak people into the islands and, try and blow our ships up. You know what I mean? Like attach explosives, like terrorist attacks. Okay. So what we did, guys, I can show you a picture of Ford Island. Any guys been to Pearl? Been to Hawaii? Fast forward here a little bit. Maybe. Okay. So guys, this is Ford Island in Pearl Harbor. Okay. We are going to limit access to anybody that should not be near this island. You know what I mean? So high security situation. Because we feared they would, so we bunched all our ships together and didn't allow anybody that wasn't supposed to be there to be there. Because that was what we feared the attack would come as. As far as the Japanese bringing 5 aircraft carriers across the Pacific Ocean and launching 380 aircraft in a surprise attack, we didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? Bell's about to ring. All right, we'll finish that story tomorrow. Okay? And you guys